All right, so I'd like to welcome my fellow panelists for our conversation. About a year ago, I moderated a conversation on pre-X Twitter Spaces about developing workplace policies that support moms and caregivers raising kids with disabilities. And since that conversation, I've been thinking a lot about how we all do this better and support these folks in the workplace. And today I'm so excited to discuss the unforeseen care journey behind the women raising kids with disabilities. So this is another string in the pearl of a long necklace of conversation that we need to have about this topic. Hi, everyone. I am Amber Coleman-Mortley. I lead community and culture here at the Female Quotient. I am a Black American woman with a warm brown skin tone, wearing big frames. I have a bob haircut, and I'm wearing a navy blue shirt. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm coming to you live from the East Coast. I'm going to have each of my guests share who they are and share an inclusive self-description. I'm going to start with you, Laura.
It's Laura. Hi, my name is Laura. It's so nice to meet everybody and be here. I work at Weber Shandwick, where I'm Vice President, Global Digital and Social Marketing. I am mom to two amazing children with multiple disabilities, including autism, ADHD, and cerebral palsy. I'm a cis female, and I use she, her pronouns. I'm a Caucasian. I have shoulder-length blonde hair, blue-green eyes, and white skin. Wearing a yellow blouse with some fun ribbons on the shoulders and some gold jewelry today. And I'm joining you from my home office in New Jersey, just outside of New York City.
Welcome, Laura. So glad to have you. Jackie.
Hi, everyone. So excited to be here. My name is Jackie Winters, and I am also a Caucasian female with brown hair just below my shoulders, and I'm wearing a bright orange blouse today. I'm very excited to be here coming from my living room in Falls Church, Virginia. I'm a partner at Deloitte Consulting, where I lead projects primarily for government and public sector clients. I'm the mother of two teenage boys. One identifies as autistic, one identifies as ADHD. And I also get the honor of leading Deloitte US inclusion efforts for people with disabilities and their allies.
So glad to have you. Sequoia?
Hi, everyone. My name is Sequoia Tasker. I am a Black female. I go by she, her, and hers. I am joining you today representing the ARC United States as the Senior Executive Officer of Program Initiatives and Innovations. I currently have my hair slicked back. I have on wide Black frames. I have on a green, black, and white top with some silver access jewelry. I am joining you from my home office in Charlotte Hall, Maryland.
Excellent. Awesome. All right. So glad to have each of you with us. Let's just kick it off because time is of the essence. So, if applicable, what are some of the lessons that you've encountered while raising a child with disabilities, and how has this experience impacted your life? Laura, I'll start with you first.
Sure. I would say one of the biggest things that I've learned is that you really have to be your own advocate and their advocate. I have had to learn sort of a new language, and not take no for an answer. And by learning a new language, I mean, I know what they need to be supported in, in getting them what they need at school and all of these sorts of things. But what I know, what I feel doesn't necessarily translate into policies and, legal, regulations for, say, the school environment. So I've had to learn how to translate sort of what I know to what I know will get approved and be something that's supported based on the law. And that's huge because I know I'm persistent, in getting what they need, and I won't take no for an answer, but I know ultimately if I don't sort of find a way to present my asks in a way that checks those boxes, they're not going to get the support that they need. And so being that advocate for them and, kind of making sure that happens has been critical, and kind of figuring it out as fast as possible, because this was something that we learned about for both of them very unexpectedly. And it's something that, for our daughter was delayed in speech. We learned that she had a stroke, and it was like, the school didn't want to give her the support she needed. And I had to figure out what we were going to do to fix it and fix it fast, because it would get her delayed and it would impact her educational trajectory a lot at that age. So I think that's been the biggest thing. And it's definitely impacted, me and the work too, because, I've learned in being very open and methodical, and I've learned how to be super succinct in what I'm asking for and to like back it up with data. So a lot of the things that they were trying to not take from us, like take away from, both of our children, I was able to come forward with like the data that I've tracked and the reports that I've compiled and that sort of thing. And I've learned how that's really benefited them in the long run.
I appreciate that. Jackie.
I love that answer. I think as you learn about your kids' experiences and what to expect, you become experts in things you had no idea you were ever going to be an expert in, but you dig right in. So I would echo what Laura said, but I would also say one of the things that now my children are 19 and 17. And I think one of the things that over the journey of raising two sons with various disabilities, my eldest son started to have seizures at about the age of 10 months. And those were pretty persistent for almost that full year. We eventually got our arms around that. And then there were, subsequent sort of health issues. And it took us several years before we were able to actually get a diagnosis of autism for him. In the early 2000s, it was still difficult to find developmental pediatricians who were willing to identify it at an early age. And I quickly learned, that there were a lot of interventions that you could do and you could try and experiment with that were very meaningful the sooner you started. And so it was all about sort of learning along the way. I think also in hindsight, a few, folks who I really connected to became sort of my mentors, and really, frankly, a powerful cohort of women who had shared experiences. We kind of pulled each other through. We became sort of constant resources for each other. We became, sort of a tribe of, fellow travelers on this journey, and they were very, very important to me. And, one of them shared with me along the way that, a thought process around, worry is really the thief of joy. And that stuck with me because I recognize now, looking back, my 19-year-old is the most joyful human I've ever known and probably ever will know. And so I want to, continue to just sort of take the time to like experience the day and not feel like I constantly have to, be in repair and correct mode with my kids.
So we have becoming an expert, building this community. I'd love to hear, Sequoia, just your perspective as well. And Jackie and Laura, thank you so much for sharing. Again, what lessons, if applicable, have you encountered, raising a child with disabilities, and how's this experience impacted your work life?
So I've been very fortunate. I've been in the field itself of working with people with disabilities for 35 plus years. So I have two children, which I failed to introduce. One who is autistic and has ADHD, and the other one who is typically developing, as they say. So for me, I've had to learn to accept where they each are, and not put any expectations on them. I've learned through different colleagues and so forth, recognizing that as a sibling of, who has a brother or a sister who has a disability, there's some expectations sometimes that get put on you. My children are still fairly young, they're 10 and 12. So I've recognize that as myself and my husband navigate this space, that we really don't want to put those types of expectations unless our daughter, who is typically developing, really wants them. And Jackie, I would just like to reiterate what you said about your tribe. I call it my board of directors. As someone who's been in the field for a long time, you would expect that I would know a lot of resources and things of that nature, which I do, but it's a lot different when you're walking that path. I can talk to parents about where to go, what local things are available within the state of Maryland, federally, things of that nature. But when you're walking that path, you're so emotionally driven because you are trying to advocate for your child and ensure that they're getting what they need, that sometimes that gets lost. So I think that's been the biggest thing that I've learned. And by having what I call my board of directors, who are really my close friends who sit at that table with me, who sometimes pull me back, but also sit there and push me forward and also walk the journey with me, have been valuable, more than I can ever even speak about.
I appreciate that. Okay, so I'm not going to go in order for these questions, just to let y'all know, because Sequoia, you sparked something that I'm like, let's talk about this, unpack this a little bit more. In my previous conversation a year ago, we talked a lot about the need for self-care. And Sequoia, you said, folks reminding you, hey, like maybe we need to pull back a little or keep things in perspective. Your board of directors supporting you, your tribe supporting you. What is the definition? And Sequoia, you'll go first on this, and then Jackie, you'll follow up, and then Laura. But what is how has the definition of work-life balance shifted for you, right? Expanding and contracting. When you're raising a kid with disabilities, like, what does that mean? What does work-life balance even mean? So Sequoia, if you could share with us first.
Sure. I think it's a term we use very loosely sometimes. And I think that we're thinking there's going to be this great utopia. There are highs and lows to that work-life balance. There, just like with our life, I always say we're on this roller coaster that has, those hills that we're ticking up and trying to climb. But then, we free fall straight down, and it's just the beautiful feeling you get in your stomach. So for me, I find that, that work-life balance is just like that. It may mean sometimes that mommy needs her me time, where it's just me taking 15 minutes and meditating just to regroup. And it also means sometimes that you're going to cry. Work may seem like it's overwhelmed. Personal life may seem like it's overwhelming too. Trying to find that balance it really is a challenge. But I do feel like some of the other groups that have gone before us really talk about being inclusive, having an inclusive work environment. And I do think that is key. I've been very fortunate. The environments that I've worked in at my jobs have been very open-minded, and have taken that opportunity to learn. And I think that's the biggest thing when you have people in your life, be it professionally or personally, who are able to learn. I've had to educate family members on what to expect, or if we're having a really bad day, it's okay we're having that, and you may not understand the therapy that I'm doing or providing, or what his therapist may have said. Ask questions. I'd rather for you to ask and learn and be open-minded. So I find for me, that's really where the work-life balance comes from, is having that environment in your work and also in your personal life where people ask questions so they can educate themselves on how to navigate this journey.
Yes to that. Jackie.
I love everything that you said, and I agree, taking those moments of self-care. I think, for me, identifying the topic of emotional labor, which is a concept that has been written around, coming out of Berkeley in the 80s, and an acknowledgement that, above the sort of physical and intellectual labor, there's also emotional labor. And so it's important for me to have that kind of vocabulary, both at home with my husband and at work with my colleagues, right? There may be a lot going on with, meetings with the school system and getting the right supports in place for my kids. And so I'm, taking on additional emotional labor during those periods. And so I kind of let people know and acknowledge that, and allow people to understand. And I think when they do understand, they give me more space. The second part, though, I will say, of my personal journey is, when I get focused on something, I am all in, absolutely. And so I mentioned in my introduction that I do serve as the inclusion leader for people with disabilities and allies at Deloitte. And I've been very grateful to Deloitte for offering me that opportunity. It's, above some of the traditional work I do in management consulting, but it has given me so much more than I think I've been able to give to it. It's allowed me the opportunity to really sponsor and be an ally to, hundreds and hundreds of people who work at Deloitte, who identify as disabled and who share their own lived experiences with me. And they have been as much a resource to me as I've, kind of navigated this. And so, being in that role has also allowed me to be a part of the solution, right? And to have a sense that I'm committing time to really opening up the aperture in the workplace for people with all sorts of lived experiences. So definitely that's been a huge part of the importance for me.
Appreciate that. Laura.
Yeah, and to echo that, in my role over Shamwick, I've had the opportunity recently to become part of the leadership team since the launch of our equitable business resource group as well. And I think having the opportunity to be part of that group as in my caregiver role as well has been really meaningful to allow the time for me to connect with others who are going through, what my children are going through, because I think as a parent, the challenge is trying to support your children in a way that makes them, feel supported, but like trying to understand what the world is like from their perspective, and you don't know. So, I mean, to me, having the time to spend connecting with that team has been really meaningful as I try to understand more of that side of the journey. Our children are on the younger side, so 4 and 7. So I think a lot of them, like, they don't even know that what their circumstances are. Like our 7-year-old just knows now about his sister, and like I've tried to explain what a stroke is, and I'm like, it's like a boo-boo on your brain, and he's like, oh, okay. So like just trying to even like wrap around my head around what they're experiencing at a time that they don't even know what that is themselves has been so hard. And I think having that team has been so invaluable to me, and feeling supported not only by my direct team, but as well as by our senior leadership, and valuing those sorts of conversations has made me feel like a bit of that work-life balance as well. And it's kind of been a new element of that for me.
Okay. I appreciate y'all. Also, I just want to let you all know that there's tons of gratitude being poured on you in the chat as well for sharing. I do want to say a little bit, like, let's talk a little bit about like workplace. Like, what are the policies that need to be in place for you to feel as if you can excel at work and do an amazing job, but also be there for your kids? So Jackie, I'm gonna come to you first with this question, just about like, you have mentioned a lot of the work that you do to support others, but like, what are the qualities that you look for in a company or in a team, that you may have overlooked prior to motherhood?
Yeah, I think this is a really important part of the conversation, because it doesn't just happen organically, right? There are decisions that need to be made and be clearly communicated across an organization so that people can understand what to expect and how to show up. And so, another aspect of, us as in this generation is we're part of this sandwich generation, right? So in addition to being caregivers for our children, many of us are also being caregivers for elderly parents. And so having a leave policy in place that acknowledges that there's multiple reasons for having leave. Certainly, we want to make sure we're supporting parental leave, but acknowledging that parental leave isn't something that just happens right after you have your child, right? That there may be other occasions throughout your life that you need to take leave for other circumstances. And, as an organization, we've tried to make sure that we've modified our policies to support people in that way. I think it's very important. Equally important, though, is really training up leaders at all levels of the organization to be comfortable in this space, to be comfortable having the conversations, and to give people the room in the course of their day to share what's happening with them. I will never forget when I first came to Deloitte, and I was a senior manager at the time, and someone who was a manager at the time, we were in the middle of a big, effort, and we were working all hours. And she said, I've got to go, I've got to pick up my daughter from cheerleading practice. And I thought, where am I? That you just get to leave to go pick up your daughter for cheerleading practice. And I quickly learned, though, that I learned from her that to be transparent and to be clear about, there are certain things in my week that are sacred, and I have a responsibility and a commitment, and I will not let you down in the profession, but I'm going to make sure those things are getting done too. And when you have a team that operates that way and feels comfortable, it's very important. So I now make a point, anytime I'm starting a new project or have a new team coming together, I ask people, tell me what is sacred to you, what is important to you that we need to make room for on our team, because we're going to make that happen.
Tell me what is sacred to you, what is important to you. I just encourage everyone to lead with that question, engaging with others. Jackie, thank you for that amazing soundbite, by the way. So Laura, Sequoia, I want to ask both of you just the same question quickly, because the last question, our closing question, is really important too. So, quickly, Laura, you'll go first, and then Sequoia, just, what are you looking for that now that you weren't looking for before motherhood, as far as work policies?
I mean, for me, I know one of the things that's been invaluable to me has been sort of the people connection with leadership. So I think something that I would be looking for in the future as well is just really, I mean, I think you can tell when you're going through like the interview process with the company, like, do they really care about you as a person? Because for me, I don't think I would be where I am now or have been able to continue where I am without that connection, being comfortable coming forward saying, hey, this is what's going on with my children. This is the support I need. I learned very quickly, like, I needed to be transparent about that. And I don't think all organizations are, quite frankly, as receptive. And I think that's something that you can put as onus on yourself when you're going through that interview process to like keep an eye out for. And I think that's something that for me, I mean, it's just like a no-brainer that I absolutely have to have going forward. And then I think I'm extra focused on benefits, which is terrifying, because I think when you're interviewing as a candidate, like that sort of information isn't disclosed to you. And I think I have such a long list of specialists that our children need to get them through the day. And I know, because I have one that's out of network, like I know how expensive that is. So like, that's a huge thing for us. And I think that's something that as a candidate is very daunting, because that's not something that is very talked about. And it's not really, it's kind of like frowned upon that you're asking that up front, but it's such a big thing as a parent to children with disabilities, is to really understand that. And it's such a big piece of the puzzle for me.
And we need to talk about it more so it's normalized, right?
Yeah.
Sequoia, would love to hear from you before we go to our next question.
Well, I would just piggyback on what everybody else said, particularly what Laura says. I am a part of the management team at my current company in my previous role as well. I think that transparency and that personal, where people feel comfortable coming to you, having that open door policy, as they say, but really having that open door policy. Because, like you, Jackie, said earlier, like, I need people to understand, like, we may be in a meeting, I may have to sit there and step away to take a phone call because I see a certain number pop up. And just having that empathy and understanding and letting me know, we're still going to continue on and we'll pick up wherever we need to, and then adjusting accordingly. Like Jackie said, where you have that flexibility where if you need to step away for a minute, but they know, hey, that may mean I'm on, I'm going to be working from 6 to 9, which wasn't the intention, but this is what we have to do to get it done.
Awesome. Okay. So last question. We're going to go in the order of Laura, Jackie, Sequoia. All right. Here's a question. It's a little off script, but a little on. We're all stakeholders in each other's well-being, right? I'd love to hear any advice you have for parents and caregivers, who might be a little bit nervous about asking for what they need, right? If you could share a bit of advice to encourage them to speak up for what they need. So Laura.
Oh, definitely. That's such an important piece of the puzzle, and it was kind of the foundational piece for me. So I think I've definitely learned that by being really honest and like talking, I think in the beginning I was like, how many people should I talk to this about? Like, I don't want to like oversaturate people on this conversation. But I learned by being very open, I've kind of built out my support community in a way that I never would have thought possible. I was in physical therapy, and the therapist knew someone who was a parent advocate who helped me to figure out the beginning steps of like maneuvering the IEP process. If I hadn't been really honest with her, someone that I didn't quite frankly at that point know very well, I wouldn't have made those connections. And I think those little things that I've just taken chances on and been like, you know what, like, why not, have really sort of set me up for success. And so I've kind of managed to be able to mesh together a network of people that I know in person and people that I've connected with virtually, which is really important, like for our daughter's condition, because I don't know a lot of people locally. So I know a lot of people more in the digital space. But I think just being open and not so guarded and private about some of these things has really made a difference. And I think I've been rewarded for the chances and putting myself out there. I think it's really helped to set my children up on paths that they needed that, I wouldn't have been able to do otherwise.
Awesome. Thank you. Jackie, really quickly.
Yeah, I would say don't underestimate how much you have to share and to offer others, right? So I know I recognize it feels like being in a position of vulnerability because you're asking for help. And you need to be confident in asking for help. And when you do, you're building a clear pathway for others around you. And so every step you take, every push you make into the workplace to make it more accepting and more understanding, you're clearing the road for other people behind you, and that's goodness. So do it.
You're here, Sequoia.
So I think it goes back to we have to remember that sometimes you're being watched and you don't even know it. And I feel by being so transparent, especially I always ask for people to see me as a Black woman, but see me as a mom of a child who has a disability. And I am trying to, navigate this path forward. So I always ask for people to see me. And I agree with everything that's been said. Sometimes having to ensure people really understand who you are. You are a mom of a child who has a disability, and you're wearing multiple hats, more than some, but that's okay. And it has been very uplifting for me. So I too would just agree about the transparency aspect. Own who you are, own your story, because it is your story and you only get one. So
yes, powerful conversation. Thank you so very much, Laura, Jackie, Sequoia, for sharing with our community. I am super inspired, and I hope that you each feel poured into as much as you poured into all of us.